I was balancing, like 80-mile weeks with a full course load, 3 years of PT school.
It's a lot of work.
You just are in this flow state with running where I'm not really paying too much attention to anything that's going on around me. I have no idea what's going on in the grandstands, but I do kind of look ahead and I'm like, oh yeah, we've made some ground on her.
That notion of really mental discipline and staying in the game, the mindset.
Nobody is self-made, and anybody who says that they are, I would take that with a grain of salt. If you can find mentorship from anyone, that's like huge. The path may not be linear. Mine by no means is linear, and I'm still not done, but I do feel like where I am now is where I should be. I feel it in my bones that I've broken many times. I know that what I'm doing now, I can have a truly positive impact on clinicians and patients to make sure that we're delivering that care.
You know, one of the things that's amazing to me is that we still have people who have yet to subscribe to the show, over 90%. And yet you watch the show on a regular basis. If you go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, it really helps us immensely here at the channel to bring you the quality guests that you continue to want to see. And we're so pleased that you're enjoying the show. Thank you all so much for your comments, your likes, your shares, and spreading the word of the pathway to peak performance. It helped us to get sponsors like KE4 from Ketone Aid. And so I want to thank Frank Yosa, the CEO of Ketone Aid, for sponsoring the pathway to peak performance. This is a product I use every single day. It's a phenomenal product. There isn't anything else out there quite like this that I'm aware of, and I truly believe in it. And if you want to get free shipping on this, go ahead and go to ketoneaid.com/JOCK, and you'll get free shipping on your order. Thank you so much, Frank, for doing that. All right, let's get on with the show. I hope you enjoy it. Dr. Hannah Coffin, welcome to the Pathway to Peak Performance. So great to have you here with us today. So we talked, and your charity is?
My charity is the Movement Network. It's a coalition of doctors of physical therapy who are helping serve underserved and uninsured communities.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, it's incredible. It's an incredible discipline, which we're going to talk about a lot. But before we do that, our friends at Ketone Aid, Frank Yosa, the CEO, is the first sponsor of this show. And it's a product that I actually use frequently. Fuel workouts, fuel cycle rides, all that good stuff. And it's really interesting. Now, the one thing I want to tell you is this doesn't taste like, you say Ketone Aid, you might think it's like Kool-Aid, but it's not. It's not like that at all. So I'm going to give you an option.
Okay.
And the option, you're going to try one of these, right?
I'm excited. I know about caffeinating before a workout, and I know you've talked about these before with me, talking about just exercising and fueling for it. So I'm really curious about this.
Okay. So that workout that we did the other day in the gym,
yeah,
right, where it was supposed to be a caffeine free.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that there was a 200 milligram caffeine capsule.
I remember that. You were bouncing.
I was like, and I was looking at my heart rate. I was like, what is going on? 145. I mean, I'm never breaking usually it's like 118, 120, 121, somewhere in there. And then maybe you peak out at 130. I'm at 145. I'm like, what is going on? I couldn't breathe.
You would have thought we were like almost HIIT training with that. So
totally, exactly. And it was this KE4.
Mm-hmm.
If you drink enough of this with caffeine, it like triples the caffeine amount. It's insane. So like a lot of, I don't really know that much about these other companies that are out there. I do know that this is the Veach ester. So that this is like the one that I was originally introduced to by Dr. Seeds, and I think is the one that, I've just come to love it. I love the flavor of it. A lot of people are like, oh gosh, it's kind of hardcore. He likes to actually warn people at a time. He doesn't want to give anybody the shock value. So this one, KE2, is basically the same thing as KE4, but it's got more water in it.
Okay.
So
more diluted.
It's more diluted. It's less of a flavor. This guy is a ketone shot. So it's half of this bottle. I'd take half and you'd take half.
Got it.
Oh, and then these are hard ketones. This is a trip. They actually have a product that you actually drink. It's like a seltzer.
Mm-hmm.
And you literally, it's like you feel totally relaxed.
Okay.
Without any alcohol.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's some form of, ketone alcohol, but it's not like, anything that would give you a hangover. And so, pretty interesting product. I don't think we should do that one before the podcast.
That
right?
sounds intense, right?
Yeah, it's probably not a great idea. So What's your choice? You want to try out the super hardcore, or do you want to go for the ketone shot?
Let's go with the shot. Let's go middle ground.
Okay, middle ground it is. So,
Am I gonna be able to get this with my nails and
yeah.
puncture it?
Okay. So, oh, it tastes good. Wow. Okay. So I guess you got to figure out sort of how to measure it out, but there you go.
Hey, cheers.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers.
To you. All right.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
No,
that tastes like pina colada.
a little tropical. Yeah, I detect that. A little coconutty. Yeah.
Easy. I'm going to give you a bottle of this
Okay.
as a gift for coming to do this.
Mhm.
You're going to like this. I mean, as an endurance athlete, one of the things I think is really interesting about, is fueling, not with caffeine, not with, glucose or trying to do it that way. It's really fueling with ketones. I found that has been a really interesting experience for me, and in using it off and on over time.
No, I see the literature coming about for endurance athletes, so I'm curious to try something new to pre-fuel my run.
Yeah. No, I mean, it should be good stuff. All right. So you know how the story of the show works.
Mhm.
We go all the way back, talk about your history and how you came up and how you wound up becoming a doctor of physical therapy, which is such an interesting career. And then you can tell us the twist and turn that came from that.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Yeah, going way back. Okay, so I mean, I'm born and raised in a small town in Pennsylvania. I'm one of three. I'm the oldest child. Grew up in a loving home. Never had to need anything, but I don't think we were considered to be wealthy. But I mean, I was privileged that my parents had me and my siblings involved in club sports, anything that like was interesting. But for me, like from the earliest memories that I have from being an athlete was always going to be running. Just being like 6 years old, I remember like being on the playground challenging other kids to race, and like it was just such a rush. Would always win, like racing to part of the playground, and didn't get involved in organized sports until like I want to say like 11 or 12 years old, which by most standards people would say is like late for a lot of kids. But I mean, my parents were just so busy with work and they had a long commute, and so, like and we were involved in piano, and so it was at a point where it's just, like, too much going on for them, and so we had to drop piano, and then it's like, "Okay," I wanted to play soccer really badly, and so got involved in club soccer, and at the time, they did not have a spot for me on the age group of the girls' team, and so, like, I would practice with them constantly. My parents were taking me every day of the week to go to practice. But I was put on the boys team of my same age group. And so that was like, okay, well, this isn't what I wanted. But
This is a U12 team.
yeah, this was like U12 or U13. And it was tough because you have to hang with the boys and like they don't want to get beat by a girl. But I think it made me better. And like again, like my speed was my weapon. Like and when I was on the girls' team, like nobody could like touch me. And so I would always be first to the ball. So it was good experience getting to play with the boys because they're a lot more aggressive, especially not wanting to get beat by a girl. And then finally, like they did have a spot open up for me on the girls' team. Um, and ended up growing out of that team, and I had switched to teams farther and farther away to get more and more exposure to college coaches because that was, the end goal for me. I wanted to play at the highest level. I wanted to go Division 1, and my parents saw that, you know, we need to be playing for teams that were going to the big showcases at Disney, Vegas, Surf Cup, all of those, and I was not going to get that with my local team.
Yeah, your local high school team wasn't probably good enough to actually make that cut.
No, high school, I mean, high school, I only played 3 out of my 4 years because my high school team, it wasn't even no one's coming to watch my high school team play. My high school was really known for field hockey. My high school, they were like, my best friend and, like, so many girls from my school, they went to play on for field hockey, but my school, we rarely put out athletes, especially Division 1.
So you're from Scranton, Pennsylvania?
I tell people Scranton because that's the closest town, and most people I can identify with the office, but I'm from a town called Mountaintop, so
All within that kind of Scranton's Wilkes-Barre area.
exactly, yep.
So, I mean, soccer's not like the major sport there, is it?
No.
Yeah, growing up here, I coached soccer for many years, and what I would say is it's like you see kids burning out, playing too much when they're younger. By the time they get to U12, they're burned out from playing upper house or select,
Yeah.
so club. And I always think it's like you never really know what kind of soccer player you've got until somebody's in high school anyway. And if they're burned out by that time, they don't want to play anymore. My own son, he switched. He wanted to play football. And I was like, there was nothing I could do about it. It was like, it was over. Anyways, I'm glad. I think football had more camaraderie. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, getting burnt out, like, I am really shocked that it didn't happen to me because, I mean, once I was, like, getting deeper involved in club, I was also involved in ODP, which I'm sure you've heard of, Olympic Development Program. Um, and so, like, it was just multiple teams, and we were going every weekend, but, I mean, in addition to soccer, I was doing cross country in the fall for my high school. Running was purely to stay in shape, and then I did swimming in the winter also to stay in shape for soccer. And then in the springtime, it was the years that I did high school ball, and then also track, which did. And then I actually did a year of kicking for football in my senior year of high school in the fall.
That's so funny. That is wild, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you probably had that foot that could actually make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a great experience.
Out of curiosity, what was your longest field goal?
I never got to make a field goal while in high school. We would always go for it on fourth, so it was nothing but PATs. But in practice, without pressure, I think it was a 43.
Okay.
But
Hey,
it's so different under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
It's completely different.
Still, 43 yards that's a good kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for a high school kid, yeah, I mean, I think that would get you a scholarship to just about anywhere you wanted to go, probably, if you were kicking that in the game
Yeah.
and making it. All right, so you wind up making a D1 team,
Mhm.
and tell us about that.
Yeah, I had it narrowed down to 3 schools. I had and a lot of my decision making when picking a school was also tied to wanting to go to medical school. And so, I had it narrowed down to the University of Alabama at Birmingham, the University of South Carolina, and the University of Florida. And I ended up picking UAB because I knew that with it being a mid-major, smaller program, I figured I would get more immediate playing time.
Mhm.
And also, I think the direct pathway to medical school was a little bit more clear. And also, I had applied and accepted to their science and technology honors program there, which was a unique honors college rather than South Carolina and Florida. They just had generic programs, which UAB also did, but I really wanted to do undergraduate research and be involved with that. And I'm so thankful for that program at UAB.
Yeah, I mean, that's like an incredible place to go to school. So tell us about your experience playing. Once you get there and you're playing, tell us about how that goes.
Yeah. When I got there, it was there was a coaching change that happened in the middle before I even got there, which was a little bit scary because me and the other 9 freshmen hadn't signed our letters yet. And so when there's like a coaching transition, there's always the worry that like new coach can just drop everybody. Nothing's been signed, but they kept me on. They kept us on. And I got there and it wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. The program, I got to play. However, our record was like 2-17, and I thought about transferring and going to a different program where, maybe the culture was a little bit different, but ultimately I was really happy with what I was getting academically and felt that like you choose a school to get an education, not sports. But rather than transferring, I was being heavily recruited for running and track and field and cross country. But my entire thing through high school was like, I'm not really entertaining scouts for that because that's not what I wanted to do. So I turned down, plenty of offers for that. And so I'm like, well, just switched over to cross and track and field at UAB because they wanted me to try at least with running in spring and in winter with indoor because out of season for soccer at that time. And so they're like, it won't be a full-time commitment one way. So I ended up just switching entirely. And that was a little bit troubled because the coach that was there at the time, I was really overtrained, and so were a lot of the girls on the team, and it was extremely stressful, not only physically on my body, but mentally, it was frightening.
I can only imagine. Like, you have a good coach, you have a bad coach.
Yeah.
can make a huge difference.
It was a very bad coach.
I mean, well, when you see a record of 2-17, there are a couple of things that are happening, right? Yep, that leadership, it's leading to other stuff with the players, doing all sorts of, maybe the culture just wasn't very strong, but you stuck in. No matter what, you stuck with it, and then what happens next?
Yeah, so I mean, with switching to running, overall, there was so much talent on the team. I had so many teammates from Great Britain and Wales, and they were absolutely stellar role models to look up to. But like, I had a okay indoor season, and then when it came to outdoor, like, I was in so much pain, and they like would not send me to get medical care that I needed. I'm like, I really think something is wrong with my leg. I could not even walk without having pain, and like our athletic trainers were like trying to advocate for me, like she needs to like go get imaging done. And when they finally sent me, I had like a really terrible stress fracture. It was like a stress reaction, and then like it was lighting up on the MRI. Like I almost essentially broke a piece of my tibia completely off at that point. It was so severe. So
Whoa.
yeah. Yeah, so, like, that ended my, first season of outdoor track in, like, my freshman year. It was, like, really disappointing, um, and ultimately, like, it wouldn't get better from there until, gosh, try to remember the timeline just because with all, like, if you have, like, a traumatizing coach situation and just, like, an overall bad experience, it just muddies the waters for everything. But I wanna say it was my true senior year. So this would have been cross country of my true senior year. The other coach was let go. He wasn't necessarily fired, but let go. And then a new coach got brought on. And at that point, I'm just like, man, like I had suffered two other stress fractures at that point, one in the other leg, and then the following year in my junior year, both at the same time. So it was like I was never healthy to run. Um, and then senior year, new coach, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, I'm going through the motions at this point. Like, I will never be good. Like, I'm just trying to hold on for dear life because scholarship is paying for my education. Um, what's the worst can happen if my body breaks again? It's done this multiple times. But, got to know the new coach a little bit better, but then also in October of that year, which would have been October of 2015, my mom got a cancer diagnosis, and that was, like, really kind of set in, and I was just, like, numb to so many different things at that time, but that just kind of, like, it shook something in me deeper, and I'm just like, "You know what? I'm going to try to really reflect and look at my mileage now that I'm running and really run with intent at practice and run without fear," because again, like, if my body breaks, it breaks again. And so I don't have, coach at that time. The new coach, like, really worked well with him. I truly think that he believed in me. And you know what, like, that cross country season, I finished on a good note. I'm like, I didn't place, like, by any, like, good measure within the conference, but could tell, like, in my bones, I'm like, indoor season is gonna be good for me this year. Indoor track this coming winter is going to be something for me. And I get there and I'm like, okay, like, I cracked under 5 in the mile. Like, yeah, like, I'm like, never thought I could do that. Like, well, I always knew that I could do that, but, like,
But the circumstances did,
here.
yeah, I mean, like, all of a sudden, and then you do it.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so, like, I finally went under 5 in the mile, and, like, I was showing up bigger for my team, um, and I, had great placement indoor that year. I think I did not podium individually that year, but our 4 by our distance medley relay team, which I was the 1,200-meter leg on that, um, we were either 3rd or 2nd that year. So, I mean, solid. And then came to indoor or outdoor season that year, and this coach that was, his first year with us, he's like, "You are gonna try the steeplechase, like, I know, like, that's going to be a good event for you, and, your background in soccer, having the agility as well as, doing the endurance of this, like, let's try it." And I'm like, "Let's do it."
And you felt like your stress fracture was healed enough at that point. I mean, it was pretty not a stress fracture at that point. That's a serious fracture. So you felt at that point in time that you were strong enough that you could actually run steeplechase and do all the jumping and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, I had no lingering I mean, there was definitely, like, a little bit of apprehension, but after having gone through a cross-country season and a solid indoor season, I was like, "This isn't going to happen again," like and also with, like, the stress and how cortisol can affect healing and bone healing, which I did my master's capstone paper on that, so
Yeah, yeah, you told me about that because we were just talking about Dr. Suzanne Faree and the whole autonomic nervous system dysregulation
Mhm.
and how that just blows cortisol out. I mean, it's like when you're in that cortisol state, like what you dealt with when you're in prolonged periods of that, it is really it messes with your sleep, it messes with your
Mhm.
metabolism, all sorts of things. It's a really tough situation to be in. I know that I might for myself, I've dealt with those issues, and it's a hard. That's hard. It's
Mhm.
really hard.
Yeah, and, like, dealing with years of that stress, like, constantly feeling like everything that I was doing was, like, being monitored, and no matter what I did, it wasn't going to be good enough for that coach, and so
Well, and also when you think about it, your scholarship is riding on your,
that was always threatened.
I mean, it's sort of like what they talk about, like with scientists, right? Ophira Klein came in and Dr. Klein came in and said, science does well when we know that we've got the runway to actually complete not everything always works out. So we need to know that we've got the runway to actually make that happen. So it must have felt the same way for you.
Exactly, yeah, so, not having that constant stress, I knew, like, my body was going to hold up under whatever. And so first time coming out to the Bay was my second time doing the steeplechase, but my first time doing the 3K steeplechase, and I did it at the San Francisco State Distance Carnival, and it was a great showing, it was super scary
Go
because
Gators.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember like that in my first 3K version of it because sometimes they'll do a 2K, and I had done a 2K a couple weeks earlier at Vanderbilt, and there was a girl that fell like a couple of laps in, and so like there's always the risk of getting injured in that because for those unfamiliar with the event, it's like a hurdle, but they don't fall over when you hit them. It is a thick barrier
Yeah.
that spans
You're
at least
you're
3
going
lanes wide. You're going down with it, and so, like, I remember to the right of me, a girl from, Houston, like, hit it, and then a bunch of girls went with her. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that could have been me."
yeah.
But keep going. So, I had a really good time, at that, event, and then, one of my, college teammates, Lucy, ran the 10K at Stanford later that night, which, I mean, that was, like, a huge time adjustment for her because that all of the distance events are late at night, and we were on a 2-hour time difference, so it felt like 11 o'clock or midnight for her.
Yeah, it's so funny going to the Sanford Invitational for my son, year after year.
Mhm.
He was a sprinter. And so he, going down there for that, and then you see these athletes that are coming from all over the country, and you're like, wow, you start to really realize, we have a member of our team, ex NFL person, also, talking about, I mean, it's really hard to move around the country and do that and try to actually perform at a peak elite at an elite level.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really tough.
Yeah.
Talk about that, will you? I mean, like, how do you manage that really from your perspective when you're in those situations? You're trying to keep yourself up. It's a mental game, it's a physical game, nutrition, hydration, all of those things. How do you make sure that you stay peak?
I mean, I really think not building it up to be something that it is bigger than what it truly is, Like, you have to treat it like just another day at the office, and you have to trust that all of the things that you've done up to that point, you've done it. So, I mean, another part of, like, me finally starting to literally hit my stride with running, with having a coach that believed in me, I was really starting to buy into myself more with keeping, like, very, like, specific like, I have notebooks of, like, everything that I did with my running, my mileage, how I felt, what the weather was like, and then also everything that I was eating, like, and then hydration, like, all of these things I was documenting like I hadn't before, but again, it all came down to, like, not having that stress, having that open runway that I know that I have everything that I need to make it happen and not that stress. And so when you're going to a much bigger event on a bigger stage, you really can't treat it like it is a larger than life event. You have to treat it like I belong here. I have put in the work. I belong here.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the fact, right?
Mhm.
You do belong there. You have put in the work. And so I love that notion of really mental discipline and staying in the game. The mindset is solid. And it's like, hey, I'm going to show up, and the other stuff is sort of inconsequential. It's interesting how you can actually get that perspective and make that happen.
Yeah, and I mean, as somebody who, considers themselves to be a higher performer, not only like athletically, but also academically, you know, people like that are a lot more susceptible to like, oh, like, do I belong here? Like imposter syndrome.
For sure.
And I have to check myself on it all the time, even to this day. But it's like, I would not have made it this far without being qualified truly. So you've really got to just trust that you belong where you are. You would not have made it otherwise.
Yeah. So how'd you do in the event?
Yeah, so the big, like, culmination of, like, my true senior year, um, it was, had a couple of more meets, and then, like, big thing we were preparing for was our conference meet, and there was one girl who was, like, clearly going to win the event. I think her PR was, like, 20 seconds better than mine, which in the steeplechase, that's, considerable. But then 2nd and 3rd, there was me and a girl from Charlotte who were, like, very, very close in time. I think her PR for that season was a few seconds better than mine, which, that's very doable. And so me and my coach were talking about how, the goal for conference is just shoot for second, like, 1st place, it's pie in the sky. And also, it happened to be at the number 1 girls, they were hosting conference that year at Middle Tennessee State University. So get there and I am like well prepared to go through my whole, routine, everything that I normally do prior to a race. It is cold. I remember it was so cold. It was at like the last event. And so it was kind of cool to have everybody like watching, my event at the end of the day. And everybody likes to watch steeple because somebody might fall. You never know. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, I wanna watch people splash in the water." And so, um and I'm like, my mom, like, she, was able to come to the meet, and I'm like, "Hey, like, I'm gonna do my best, but, probably not gonna win, but, would love for you to come." And my mom has always been my biggest supporter, and, by this time, like, she was, in remission, like, she was completely cleared from her breast cancer. She had her lumpectomy and everything, borders and margins looked good, so she was doing better at that time as well.
Yeah.
Um, but, like, actually running the race, gun goes off, and 1st place girl, like, 1st seed girl, like, she is out in front. She has a 100-meter lead on us, like, halfway through the race, and it's just me and the Charlotte girl, like, hanging, like, next to each other the whole time, and they're kind of, like, trading off on who leads each lap, and my coach is, like, he's on the infield, and he's, like, telling me, "Good job, stay dialed in." And I wanna say it was, like, around lap 5, because steeplechase is 7 laps and then change with, the starting on the back curve on the 200. And I wanna say lap 5, like, coach and my teammates on the infield, they're like, "Yo, like, number 1's slowing down." And it's kind of, like, hard for me to like, you just are in this flow state with running where I'm not really paying too much attention to anything that's going on around me. I have no idea what's going on in the grandstands, but I do kind of look ahead and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we've made some ground on her, and I have a kick." My speed has always been my threat, even in distance running, that I will always have something in the tank. And I start to lay it down like laps like 5.5 to 6. And the Charlotte girl is hanging with me. So I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what she's doing at that point. Like, this is me and I'm going. And I am rounding the turn on the final lap. The final water barrier is like 150 from the final. And, like, I am able to catch the Middle Tennessee girl at that point, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm in 1st," like, put it on, lay down the hammer, and I finish 1st, and I'm, like, completely in, like, shock and disbelief. It was not supposed to happen that way, and immediately I run to my teammates on the infield, like, at that point, like, not only me having like dealt with the prior coaching situation, there was only 5 of us like healthy on that team at that point. We only had 5 people. And so I ran to the 5 girls who had been with me for the last 3 years, who had suffered with me and stayed. And like I just embraced all. It was just that's everything to me.
And I have your mom there too.
Yes.
Like,
And she recorded it, so it's like, oh my gosh, like I can like watch and relive that. Like I don't have many of my races like recorded like that. And so that was just like one of my top memories because all of those people were there to like share that moment with me.
I mean, that's just such a huge victory going into it. And then, hey, just shoot per second. But then all of a sudden, it's interesting how that might take the pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you think, oh, I've got to beat her, I got to beat her.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, I'm cool with, we're just going to shoot per second. And then all of a sudden, on any given day, it just goes to show that you're as much of an athlete as you want to be. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
No, so it was such a special moment. And at that point, like, that time wasn't my PR, but my time um, that I had gone into that race with, it was just good enough that had me on the bubble to qualify for Eastern Regionals. And unfortunately, I was like the first or second one out, so didn't get to qualify for regionals that year. Um, but it left me hungry for my final year because I had a year of red shirt. And I was like super strong, like my final year of eligibility. Um, Cross country, it was never really my thing. So overall, it was a decent cross country season. I think a lot of us ended up getting really sick prior to conference, and so it wasn't like the best showing that coach had hoped for. And then indoor, I had obliterated all of my PRs indoor. I was our team's high point scorer, and I was podium for both the mile and the 3K. And then our DMR placed second that year. So that was super strong showing. And then I'm like, yes, outdoor, like my time to shine again. Like I am now the front runner for Steeplechase. However, I came out and I was competing at Stanford that year because I had the qualifications to do that. I had the times to do it. And unfortunately, I had a really bad fall that year. I hit a barrier. I got my trail leg clipped over a barrier and just like hit both of my knees into the track like right in front of me and like was able to finish it, but like I thought I blew my knee out. Like
Some of those wipeouts, are just they're so hardcore.
Mhm.
You see them and you just go, oof.
Yeah, you can hear the crowd like, ooh, you
Yeah.
can feel it.
I remember watching my son run. I think it was a 200. It might have been 100, but he pulled a hamstring.
Yeah.
And I was watching him in the finish, and he was in the lead, about to win. Boom, hamstring pops, and he's just I don't know if I could have heard it, but I saw him just go like this.
Yes, you do. We see them grab the leg.
Just
Yeah.
brutal, just brutal.
Yeah, those hamstring on those explosive sprinting event. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's funny, like, watching my wife run the New York City Marathon where she's training and it's back when we were living out there. And, that plate, you go to the point where they're coming down on the east side, like coming over the Verrazano Bridge, and they're running and doing whatever it is that they're getting to in Manhattan. And then you go flip back over to the other side of the park where they're
Going out all the boroughs.
Yeah, it was just so cool. And I think it's just such an accomplishment. Running was just, if there wasn't a ball, I wasn't really that interested in it. But I think it's a really interesting sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many sports know it as their punishment. So I never fault people for maybe not being as like drawn to it as a ball sport.
Yeah, having to run laps after practices was never fun, but it is what it is. So what happens next?
Yeah, so I mean, I end up finishing with a fizzle and not a bang because I did end up hurting my hip really badly as a result of that fall, which we didn't get imaging done until the end of the season per my request because I'm like, this is it. Like, I physically can run and this is my last year of eligibility. I just want to try. And then at the end of it all, we'll see, if there's anything wrong. And I did end up having a torn labrum in my hip for that. Thankfully, didn't need to like operate to fix it, but it did take a long time of like no running, no activity for it to finally feel good. And then following that, I was like, okay, well, start preparing to go to medical school, start, getting everything together for my application. And then I was doing some road races while I was still in Birmingham. And then got in touch with a group out in Flagstaff, Arizona, a high performance team. And I'm like, you know what? Like, post-collegiate athletic career has a shelf life, whereas school will always be there. And so I moved out to Flagstaff to go train with the high performance team for the next several years. So that was not really a big risk, but it kind of was. I mean, I moved out there not knowing anybody, and I'm like, like, I never really feel like I got to see running all the way through, and I know I have so much more to give. I mean, I only had, 1.5 good college years, and I'm like, well, if I was able to accomplish that in that much time, with healthy body and, like, refined training, like, what can I do? But then unfortunately, like, the peak of all of that was in the pandemic, and so yeah, like, being out in Flagstaff and having the privilege to train at, like, high altitude is just next world, because when you would come down and compete at sea level, like, I'm superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge advantage, right? I mean, if you're training at sea level all the time, you got to go up in altitude. That's like, you got to take days to acclimate.
Mhm.
Oh, what was I just heard this strategy somebody was using. They're using a sauna strategy.
Oh, not an oxygen chamber.
It's hypoxic training,
Yeah.
and they're using a sauna as part of it.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's pretty intense. I mean, you just think about it. I mean, I just remember all the years of going up and skiing, and just being at sea level, and then, it's amazing how dehydrated you get.
Mhm.
Like, I'm always drinking the iCell water, because it's like, once you start feeling that hydration in your cells, it's amazing how dehydrated people are.
If you feel like you need water, it's too late.
Yeah, you're way past
You're
it.
way past it. So, no, staying on top of hydration, whether you're an endurance athlete or not, it's just, like, so important.
Yeah, I think every morning in the gym, we're getting in like, at least, I think the last count was like 80 to 100 ounces of water, before we're ever hitting the sauna. Then we're putting more water back in, because you're like, I think you told me it was like 32 ounces to 64 ounces of water that you can lose in a sauna, depending on how long you're in there and how hot it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy because you don't even think about it.
Mm.
You're not sweat, you know what I mean? It's like evaporating that fast.
Yeah. No, it's rapid. And when people were like, "Oh yeah, I'm in there all the time," I'm like, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not so long."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I definitely changed my time after you did that, right? You was like, hey, you're cooking yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
But no, overall, like, recovery after a run, I love sauna afterwards. It's great. It's just like a nice, like, cherry on top of everything. It feels like a reward almost, maybe.
Good stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely have liked it. I was the steam room guy for the longest time and just liked that. And then all of a sudden, Zach, his wife, said, no, you know what? Here's the medical evidence on steam room. It's just not as good as that sauna. And so, I just started switching over, and now it's like, I never even want to go in the steam room.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like you've got the better thing. Why go back to the other thing?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's 5 minutes in the steam room is good, but at the same time, it's just not as hot, and it doesn't quite work as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you do the high performance thing,
Mhm.
and then what's the next step?
Yeah, so I mean, while I'm doing all of that, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not gonna do medical school, like, what now? Because I mean, I got my bachelor's and I got my master's while I was at UAB, bachelor's in biology and then master's in biotechnology, which was like the bench commercialization of drug and med device, which was super cool. But I'm like, there's not really any medical technology here out in Flagstaff. Like, everybody in Phoenix has their summer home here. Like, they go to escape the triple digit temperatures.
It's still pretty hot in Flagstaff in the summer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and there, like, almost nowhere there has AC because it's, like, moderately temperature, so, yeah, it can get, like, 80 or 90 degrees there in the summertime. That's
But beautiful up there.
gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, yeah.
I've been there in the summer. It's really nice.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful hiking, biking, running, and because you have that altitude benefit, it does draw a lot of high performance runners, and, I mean, there will be running teams from other parts of the world to come train there because it's such a unique training climate. Like,
Yeah.
we have like Mammoth and Big Bear and Flagstaff here, and then like, Kenya, like there's very few countries that offer this type of training.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm like, what do I do if I'm not going to do medical school? Like, and so I reflected on my career as an athlete, and I talked to my mom about it because she is my confidant for everything. And like, she's like, well, like USC has a hybrid program, like it's for physical therapy. And like reflecting on my injuries, I'm like, it was really like, the PTs and the ATs who were there for me through all of the injury, like that I was there for. I was in the training room every single day rehabbing injury. But then when I was healthy, I was also in there doing prehab, like doing like cold tub and like contrast with the hot and ice, like everything. Like, so was very much in there, but because I wanted to prevent stuff. And so I'm like, well, maybe I should look at physical therapy. And so I applied to USC's hybrid program and I got accepted. That was the only program I applied to. And I got accepted and I'm like, okay, like it's meant to be. And it ended up working out nicely because again, it was the pandemic and USC was the first to have a hybrid program. And so they had a couple of classes before me. So I'm like, I know this has been executed and done well. And USC is one of the top PT programs in the country and people are passing the boards exam. And so I was balancing, like 80-mile weeks with a full course load, 3 years of PT school.
It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you become a doctor of physical therapy, right? I mean, I can't imagine that. That program was easy. I mean, there had to have been moments where you thought to yourself, or did you? I mean, were there moments when you thought to yourself, I don't know?
Yeah, I am extremely privileged to have been a part of that program. There are so many brilliant faculty who are at the forefront of exercise medicine and rehabilitation, and I love all of them, and I'm, like, always looking into what, emerging research they are doing. Um, but yeah, I was, like, having my doubts, like, in throughout the program because I'm like, it seems like through some of my clinical rotations, like the work-life balance isn't exactly what was kind of told to me or in the research that I did prior to going to school. And also like the debt to income ratio for the profession, it doesn't seem to be catching up. If you have a cash-based or like, private practice, that seems to be a really good model and a model that I believe in because it's like, here's a flat rate and you get the therapist for an hour. They can do whatever they think is indicated for that patient. But I mean, you want to be accessible as a clinician, but also you want to get paid because you have crazy debt. You have crazy student loans after the end of it. And so I was just kind of getting a little bit freaked out because my goal through PT school, I'm like, okay, I did a rotation with baseball at spring training, which was a huge privilege in and of itself. I'm like, I'm really liking this. Like, I'm going to apply to USC sports residency, and then I want to do their upper extremity fellowship to specialize in the overhead athlete. And so I, in the middle of PT school, actually, like right on coming up on my final year, I had a really bad accident on a clinical rotation where I passed out. They have no idea why I did. It was just like they were just chalking it up to a syncopal episode. But I broke my leg very badly. I had a massive spiral fracture of my tibia and fibula.
Same one as before?
Completely unrelated, but I had stress fractures in both of my legs twice each in college.
Jeez.
Yeah, but the break where the spiral fracture happened, nowhere near where the stress fractures were. The stress fractures were like tibial plateau, more proximal. The spiral was distal, like almost mid shaft, and also fibula.
Brutal.
Yeah, so that was in May.
Still have hardware in there?
I do, yeah. So I had surgery, like I had my fall and I had surgery the following day, and this rotation actually happened to be at UAB. I was on a rotation at Children's of Alabama on a pediatric outpatient rotation, and they literally like put me in an ambulance. I'm like, don't put me in an ambulance, like, like I'm fine, and they're like, you're not fine. Like my foot was on 90 degrees. The
Right.
yeah.
I've seen that. That happened to my wife skiing. She got hit by a runaway skier, and like the whole thing is like it was so hardcore.
I had to have an IM nail put in, and my younger sister actually was in medical school at the time. She's 2 years younger, and she was in medical school at UAB on her 4th year and had already matched in orthopedic surgery. And like, it's crazy that that's the path that she picked, because that's the path that I initially thought that I wanted. But she ended up executing that perfectly. She is brilliant, and having my fall there and having doctors that happen to be her faculty, like, that she knew, I'm like, this is the best case of an
Yeah.
awful scenario.
Yeah, can't be any better.
So had the IM nail placed, and then school is like, you can't continue with, doing clinical rotations now. Like, you're literally physically not well enough to. I was completely non-weight bearing. I was in excruciating amount of pain following it. It looked like post-operative. It looked like a car had run over my leg. It was just black and blue
Yeah.
from above the knee all the way down to my foot and ankle.
Oh, God.
The whole thing. Yeah. So, I'm like, well, I don't want to slow down, and USC has a 40-week clinical rotation requirement, which is more than what the standard of physical therapy requires for a school. I think it's like 30 weeks, but USC, I think, had us at 40, which gotta be better, right? I'm like, well, I can still go to class and everything. So I went through my summer course load, and I'm like, I do not want to delay graduation. Like, I will not let this set me back. And so ended up, going through classes and being fine and cleared to like walk and do weight bearing by the time that fall rotation had come up. Um, but when it came down to trying to like get back into exercise and running, it was still so painful. And so like I couldn't even like do a resisted hamstring curl, like an isometric, without just having a terrible like clawing sensation on where like the proximal screws were for keeping the nail in. And so that December was able to have some of the hardware removed, those 2 screws, and then one more distally. Can't have all of them removed, otherwise the whole nail would have to come out, because if they took all the screws out, it would just be
Nothing to anchor it.
floating in there. So
Yikes. That's
Yeah.
pretty hardcore.
yeah. So had all of the unnecessary hardware removed in December, and not as much recovery time, no delay on, anything that I had obligated for school. And it was just so busy through the springtime, because at that point I was at spring training for baseball doing my final clinical rotation, and then had graduation in June. And then I had to, it was May, not June. And then I had to finish off just a shorter, abbreviated clinical rotation to make up for the time that I had missed due to the initial fall. So graduated on time, walked on time. However, that whole ordeal did delay my application for applying for residency. So that did set me back a year from that. Otherwise, I would have applied directly. But worked for that whole year in outpatient therapy, and I did a little bit of travel PT to be close to my sister, who was at that point in residency, just started residency in Toledo, Ohio. And I'm like coming up on things. I'm like, I'm really not like an outpatient, but like, maybe when I get to residency, I will like it better. I'm applying, but I'm like, what if I don't like it? Like, what if I really am feeling like, my feet to the fire here, and this, isn't really for me? What then? And so I'm like, well, maybe I should look into, sales, like with surgery, like still being involved in patient outcomes in some way. And so I was reaching out to connections to see how I could make that happen. And at the same time where I get a job to, start my career in sales, I also like had offered a spot with USC's sports residency. So I'm like, got my dream residency, and I got a job that brought me out to California, which I'm like, never thought that I would get everything that I wanted. Like, but I'm like, I manifested. I'm like, you know what? So I ended up declining the residency offer, which broke my heart, because I'm like, this isn't everything that I had worked for to this point. But my gut instinct was like, I don't feel like I am able to take care of myself and all of the things that I want to be outside of just, a clinician. Like, I have my personal goals, and I would still like to follow some athletic pursuits and try again with running. But I don't know if I can do that being a full-time clinician. And also, I feel like maybe I can have more like impact if I am in another role that can still help with clinicians and their healthcare process.
Yeah.
And so I ended up taking the sales job, worked in the OR with surgeons for a little bit. And then I'm like, I still don't feel like I'm having enough of an impact here. I love being in the OR. I love explaining, everything that I know about anatomy and physiology and how I can help surgeons with their process. But the driving and just constantly having to be in place in person was still a lot. And I'm like, I feel like there's a better way again for me to reach more. And so I ended up finding you. And I'm like, healthcare tech, learning about everything that it is that you do and everything that's happening at Quantum. Got a demo of the platform. And I'm like, this is something that I would have liked to have had as a clinician myself, like being a therapist, getting patients referred for specific treatment and explaining the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, I feel like a broken record, but everybody deserves the same care. So I need to do my due diligence to make sure I'm giving them that thorough explanation.
Yeah, I'm not a clinician, right? But I've been around healthcare my entire career. And I think the reality is it's just like, if you're around it long enough, you see, and it's this redundant communication, having to say the same thing over and over and over and over again. And then, my career intersects with this electronic health records, where healthcare really changes, managed care comes in, so we're in the 90s now. And it's like this totally different sort of like you're used to having this face-to-face kind of communication with the clinician and even your pharmacist. And it's just totally changing. And then, of course, developers are making technology that's really not geared towards. It's the way they think developers think,
Yeah.
right? It's the way that they think it should work this way, but it doesn't really work with a clinical workflow. Big challenges there. So when we developed that platform, we really wanted to do it with the clinician in mind and solving for how do you create a better patient interaction, a better patient relationship. And that's when we created that, that category, patient relationship management, is the ability to educate prior to, and then for you as a clinician to be able to sit down and really say, hey, this is your situation, make that eye contact, really connect in a way that's so, so powerful. I just feel like I'm so pleased with where we've come as a team and what's going on with that. And it's like, I think with your clinical background and all of that, I just knew when we first brought you onto the team, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be and you're doing so well. You know what I mean? It's so cool to see you just actually get in there and really crush it. And, it's so disciplined. And I think those are all the things that you have to do in order to make things really work. You got a huge future ahead of you. It's pretty exciting. Where's your sister now?
My sister is still in Toledo, Ohio. I mean, she's still there. Being an orthopedic surgeon is it's one of the most competitive specialties to get into. And I mean, as a woman, like she is absolutely like in a small minority, but she's still in Toledo and she is coming up on her 5th year. She has just finished her process of applying to fellowships and interviewing with all the fellowship programs that she had interviews with.
What's the area that she wants to focus in?
She wants to do hand and upper extremity.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you what. So my second wrist surgery, first, I'm not going to mention the doctor's name because I was like not happy with him at all, but James Chang, Dr. Chang, down at Stanford did my second surgery where they shaved down some bones, cut out some nerves. Because I was in just massive pain.
Yeah.
I mean, doubled over. Like, there's no cartilage in here.
And I mean, you're right-handed too. That's your dominant hand. So it's like
brutal. And he said, I can take you from an 11 to a 4, right? Because the pain was at times like just doubled over so bad. And that is such a really interesting, orthopedic. Well, he's a plastic surgeon, but I think they're all kind of related in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That's just an incredible specialty. Yeah.
No, she's absolutely brilliant, but she's like, I'm ready to be done with residency. She's got 1 more year and then she's got a year of fellowship. And then after that, she is out in the wild
It's interesting. I think that's going to happen as we're seeing all this stuff happen with longevity medicine, how that's going to permeate into orthopedics so quickly. I mean, you think about it, the guy that I mentioned before, Dr. William Seeds, was an orthopedic surgeon. Another person that was an orthopedic surgeon who runs a clinic in Boulder, Colorado, is Elizabeth Yurth. She's an amazing doctor. If you get a chance to listen to her, it's just like incredible.
Yeah,
Her presentations are amazing, and she's just like so smart, and it's really, really cool. Well, Hannah, it was great to have you in. And is there anything you want to share with kids that are coming up, about like sticking in and staying the course and never giving up?
I would say really lean into like if you can find mentorship from anyone, that's like huge. And like if you just see somebody who is doing something that you like, whether it's, career, athletic, like anything, if you see that person, like reach out. Like the worst they can say is no, I'm not interested. But I mean, I've had students who have reached out to me to, describe my career as an athlete and what it took to get into PT school and to navigate that. I have never turned down a person who has sought that. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to be a resource for people, but nobody is self-made. And anybody who says that they are, I would take that with a grain of salt because I by no means am self-made, but it does take hard work to get there. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but I mean, if it's what you really want, it is worth it. And the path may not be linear. Mine by no means is linear, and I'm still not done, but I do feel like where I am now is where I should be. I feel it in my bones that I've broken many times. But I know that what I'm doing now, I can have a truly positive impact on clinicians and patients to make sure that we're delivering that care while, making sure that it's still personalized, but giving everybody their time back because the demand on docs is just ever increasing.
Yeah, and I think also when we take a look at like, staff inside of practices, I mean, I felt so bad for staff members for so many years, seeing them stuck in positions where it's really hard to break out of that. And I think that they're stuck in the same redundant communication, cycle. And when we can produce technology that can alleviate some of that for them, not entirely, but some of it, and automate some of the things, then we can reutilize them within the practice to do things where we produce a better patient outcome, a better patient experience. And ultimately, I think when we're navigating through the healthcare system, you mentioned mentors. It's also about, advocates, right? Having an advocate for you as a patient.
Yeah.
So important, right?
Yes.
Because you think about it, hey, I don't want to get in the ambulance, but you may not be may not be in your right of mind, right?
Yeah, I wasn't, but I'm like, I don't think my insurance is good. I'm a student.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, like advocacy for your patient. But like, I mean, talking about technology and like making it automated and efficient, great. I think that's what every tech company's goal is. However, like I don't feel like we're losing the human touch with it because like everything, it is the doctor delivering the message with our messaging flows. And so like it doesn't feel like you're just being handled by like some automated message like cool, we'll see you. Like this it really feels like the doctor is delivering the message that they want you to hear and we're not losing a human touch.
It's just so much better for the patient.
Absolutely.
It's really cool to have been a part of a team that figured out, the better mousetrap, and to be the only one in the category that actually has produced that or done that. It feels great. It was not without sacrifice. It was a ton of work. And being an entrepreneur is not an easy road to go down. Especially when you're decide that you're going to self-fund, you leave the venture world behind and you say, okay, we're going to be our own venture firm. We're our own venture group. It's a different set of challenges. It's just like, I think, dealing with people, if you can do it the right way, you can produce amazing results and it feels pretty good. All right. Hey, last question. We're pretty far into this, but I got to tell you, I felt a peak on those ketones. Did you feel them?
I feel energized. I do. I'm like, I could keep talking. I could yap all day.
Yeah. Don't drink the other half of that bottle. I'll
No.
tell you what, especially if you had any caffeine during the day. those things are amazing. I really want to thank Frank Yosa for that, being the first one to step up and sponsor this. As you know, like all the proceeds from the show go to the charity that you chose. And so the views that come from this episode, which is evergreen content, so as it grows over time, we're going to be sending that off to that charity. So having a sponsor that comes along and helps out with the production costs is always a help. It's nice to have that. So, hey, welcome to the team.
I'm so happy to be here, Jock.